I don't see Paul yet. Gingell is absent with notice. Gershenson?
Here.
Taylor?
Here.
Erickson Galt?
Here.
Nelson?
Here.
Ravel? Joliet?
Here.
Lubes?
Here,
We have a quorum.
thank you. Please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first item is approving the minutes from January 9th, 2024. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner Joliet. Any changes? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, our minutes are approved. The next item is approving the agenda for today. I have a motion by Commissioner Taylor, support from Commissioner Erickson Galt. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. We move to our first public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to comment on items on the agenda? Seeing none, public comment is closed. We move to communications. There are 4 items under communications. The intake and disposition report from December for our animal control. The 2024 local public health wellbeing grant. The 4th quarter out of school time grant report from 2023. And an application for 2024 Safe Community First Responder Program. Are there any comments on anything on the communications? Commissioner Nelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you just briefly, a little foggy on the public health wellbeing grant? What is that?
Well, it's a grant acceptance for it. I did know this. Hold on a second.
No problem.
So it's between Michigan Association for Local Public Health and Oakland County Health Division to provide supportive services to local health department staff affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and to bolster their sense of social and emotional well-being. This total grant award is $5,000. And we enter into the contract. Is this what we're providing for people who test positive and they have additional monies? I don't know, who's on?
Commissioner Lipsy, I would say yes, but we don't have a member of the department, or the health department on with, or I'm sorry, Human Resources. Stacy Sledge is the one who submitted this. So I could certainly have a follow-up at a future meeting if you'd like. But I believe this is from that is what the money will be going for.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. And in fact, I didn't.
It's also to address workplace stress, but it's a grant designed to support our employees.
And I think that's helpful. I just didn't know if it was to Oakland County residents or
No, it's for the
in-house
employees.
Oakland County employees. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, would you prompt the vote? We had a motion from Commissioner Taylor and Commissioner Erickson Galt.
Okay. Receive and file. Lubes?
Yes. The proper.
Oh, it did, I'm sorry. Taylor? Oh,
Yes.
there it goes. You have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, our communications are approved. We move to our first regular agenda item. This is the Oakland County Tactical Consortium Agreement. Who would like to make a motion? I have a motion by Commissioner Joliet, support from Commissioner Gershenson. And this is under our emergency preparedness, and Tom Hardesty is here to talk about this item.
Hi, good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the time this morning. 2012, the OCTAC is the acronym County Tactical Training Consortium was enacted. At that time, there was a handful of agencies. The Sheriff's Office in Oakland County were one of the founding members. I actually sat on the board in my prior life when I worked for Auburn Hills. Originally, when this group formed, it was to get some consistency in law enforcement training. Mobile field force was kind of the first thing. It quickly then grew into active assailant training, after which every law enforcement agency in the county, local law enforcement agency joined the group. And they've trained together several thousand now police officers in active assailant training, all consistently and trained the same. But the group has continued to evolve, now looking at providing guidance for policies, for communications, and even looking at response recovery after events. So with that, the agreement needed to be updated. The other thing that has evolved is the requirement for some insurance for the group, the potential to take in some revenue from training to then turn around and use that. So one of the other changes, initially this group didn't have anything to do with any money, but since they now have some dues for local agencies and they may have some revenue in, they have also asked that our office become a fiduciary for them. So this agreement would update it to cover all of those topics, and then give that OCTAC board the ability to ask for a fiduciary, and their intent is to ask Oakland County Emergency Management to become the fiduciary for the group. So that would come. So there's not a budget amendment with it now, because there would be no funds from the county that would be expended for this. If there's revenue that comes in from OCTAC, then we would just help manage that money for them.
Thank you. And I know our local communities and townships certainly do take advantage of the collaborative agreements and the training. Anything else? All right, would you prompt the vote?
Oops.
Yes.
Is that showing you something? Sorry. You have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Our next item is from the Prosecuting Attorney's Office to copy and digitize record services for the Conviction Integrity Unit, otherwise known as CIU. I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner Erickson Galt. And who do we have here? Dave Williams and Beth Green.
Good morning.
Tomorrow is here to talk about this item. Oh, Nicole also.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
I'm not sure how many of you have met Beth Greenberg Morrow. She's the director of our Conviction Integrity Unit. As you all know, you all funded the Conviction Integrity Unit shortly after Karen took office. This request comes out of a recommendation from Corporation Counsel. As you all know, we've had a couple of wrongful conviction cases already. Those spawn claims for compensation from the state as well as civil matters. And Corporation Counsel said to us, look, you need to make a digital copy of each file before you start your review so we have an intact, clean, pristine version, or at least pristine from the moment the CIU picked it up. There was originally discussion of whether that really fell under Corporation Counsel, but after some further discussion, we all agreed it really falls under the Conviction Integrity Unit. And so we're asking for this money to allow the copying and digitizing of CIU files before the CIU does its investigation. They've identified a vendor. This would be spent against the $100,000 as the cases are reviewed.
Thank you. And we have copied and digitized records from other departments also. So it really is a good idea in our modern world of technology today. Any comments or questions? All right, would you prompt the vote, please?
Oops.
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next three items are from the Sheriff's Office. The first is an application to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources for the 2024 Marine Safety Program. The next is a 3-year extension with NYE Uniform for uniform services. And the last is an amendment to the 2022-24 Law Enforcement Services Agreement with the Charter Township of Oxford. Who would like to make a motion? I have a motion by Commissioner Nelson, support from Commissioner Joliet, and we have our undersheriff and guy up here to talk about these items.
Good morning. So the first item is our annual application to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources for the Marine Safety Program. As you know, typically we apply for the maximum amount that we would be eligible for reimbursement. But our awards typically, so this year our application is $676,000, a little over that. Last year we were awarded $168,600. So, you know, we apply for as much as we can and our awards don't come in, yes. So, you know, as you know, we try to get every penny that we can and from any source and any grant and whatever, but this is our annual application.
Commissioner Nelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it goes without saying, I'm a huge supporter of our Marine Patrol program here in Oakland County. I did have a couple questions because, as you said, it's capitalizing it on every dollar that we possibly can. So just a couple questions for clarification. On page 3 of the applicant or the application, I just wanted to get some clarification. So it looks like item C, so there's 6 vehicles, right? Those are patrol vehicles, correct?
Okay, so what page 3, because I have PDF pages, I have, so can you tell
On
me
the
what is?
application, the
what's-
Marine,
Yeah, what's the title of the
So it's the
page?
2024 Marine Safety Grant Application,
Okay, but then what's at the top of the page that you're looking at?
applicant information,
Okay,
and it looks like it's on page
of
3.
that, okay, because these,
Contracted services, supplies, materials.
okay, yes,
So C, 6 vehicles, I'm assuming those are patrol
yes.
cars.
Mhm.
And then the patrol boat usage, I see 28 vehicles. Is that 28 boats?
Yes.
Okay, so when I take a look at the estimated maintenance costs, it looks like for 6 vehicles, it's $140,129. And then for 28 vehicles, the maintenance cost is $38,000. That's a big
So
difference.
for vehicles, it's mileage cost is what it is, so we calculate the mileage, so it's not actual maintenance on the vehicles, it's a mileage cost, so
I
they
am
don't,
so glad I asked for clarification. Thank you.
yes, and then the boats would be the actual, like.
Completely makes sense now. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure. Commissioner Gershenson?
so the balance, does that come out of your budget, the sheriff's budget, or?
Yes, marine safety is in the general fund budget, and then we get reimbursement from the state and some federal, because usually when we get the award, there's a state component and a federal component. Usually federal is for equipment, and then that's when we buy equipment, I guess.
Okay,
It's in the general
so
fund.
your budget is approximately how much? Your budget
Specifically,
allocation.
I would have to get back with you on the
Okay.
actual, they just published the budget on Friday, actually, so I will pull the current numbers and I can send that to you.
Okay, I just wondered, do we consider that we have a sufficient number of boats that are patrolling?
There's never enough boats, Commissioner.
We have some of the local lakes, as you know, contract with us, so we have those services that we do. Obviously, we respond to all emergencies, so that's what we're required to do, is respond to emergencies, and that's what the budget covers, you know, a number of positions.
Whether we have a contract with that lake or not?
Yes, so any emergency is what we're required to respond to.
Okay.
And that's that's the part that we fund. If they want additional patrols on weekends or holidays or whatever, then that's
Right.
what we contract for above and beyond what we would provide for emergency services.
Got it. Thank you.
So, but I will send you the budget separately.
Commissioner Nelson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just lastly, Commissioner Gershenson brought up a good point. with the contracts with our lakes. Have we gotten 2024 contracts from CVTs yet who are contracting with patrol, marine patrol?
I think it was a
safety?
3-year, so it would have been, we should.
Is that
should
up
be-
this
those
year or
should
we
be-
got one more year?
I think, then we don't, we'll do
I
it last
think-
year.
I
will do-
think so.
We've had so many marine
We
things come
have.
through, but I'll double check and
Okay,
send that to you
thank
too,
you.
because I think it was a 3-year and then it would just have an escalating rate that would be higher. And then obviously the person that oversees it works specifically with the lakes to see, you know, what they want, what updated they want for the year. So they have the agreement stating how much the cost will be, but then, you know, it's tailored to what each lake
Sure.
requests each year, so.
Sure,
And
thank
then
you.
obviously we have the grant funding that does the patrols above and beyond, so.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, so I will send both of those items to the whole committee, the budget and then the current agreement
Thank you.
timeframe.
Any other questions on the marine safety program? All right, the 3-year extension with the NYE uniform for uniform services. So there are a number of amendments, but it looks like it's related to the financial system. And the agreement is extended because we're transitioning to black uniforms.
Yes, and so what happened, so typically we send this out to bid for uniforms. There's not a lot of competition in this space, so the last couple times we've gone out to bid, we've only had like two to three people submit a bid, and honestly, most of them aren't capable of servicing an agency of our size. Obviously, we have a lot of employees and a lot of uniform needs, and if you've looked through the contract, all the specifics with all of the item numbers, it's monumental. So what we were looking at, this contract would come up for renewal or would need to go out to bid coming up pretty quickly because it expires in July. However, we're right in the middle of this uniform transition. So we talked to purchasing and said, hey, you know, would we be able to extend this contract to get us through the transition and have this company hold the price? And so that's what we're concerned about. If we went out to bid, it would likely increase the price. And obviously, this is a pretty expensive endeavor to completely transition. So that's why we're here to ask you for this. Yeah, like I said, typically we would go out to bid, but we want to extend the contract for 3 years. That's kind of an aggressive time frame, but you know, my team, we're trying to find every dollar and every extra dollar that we have. If we have it, we put it towards uniforms at this point in time. So it's a very, you know, kind of regimented schedule on what we can afford to transition each year.
Commissioner Cavell?
From looking at the amendments, the contract amendments have gone from going up by $250K to adding, the original contract was whatever it was, and then you added $250K in an amendment, then you added $80K in an amendment, then you added $200K in an amendment, and then you say there's only a couple contractors. I'm not convinced, and this is not within the county's general practice of doing a 3-1-1 contract, and I understand that there's a better pricing, but the fact that you've increased the price by $250K, by $80K, by $200K in amendments, not that that's not necessary for uniforms, but I'm gonna vote no on this because I got a lot more questions, and I think before we vote on it as a board, they should be answered, so I'll email you.
Okay.
Do you, regarding his questions, do you prefer to send by email? And certainly you can follow up with email, but is there any clarification now?
Either way,
If you want, yeah,
if you have
whatever.
process,
Yeah.
because if you have process questions, obviously that's through purchasing. So we don't do anything without, you know, asking purchasing for their guidance and what they would recommend. So obviously, we're trying to keep the cost the same and not risk, if you will, having an increased cost. And then, in my opinion, it would take longer for the transition because the price would be higher and we wouldn't be, with our uniform budget, I'm stretching it each year. That's why you see the amendments, because the initial contract has a not to exceed amount.
Yeah.
And then as we've, you know, added on or made changes to the contract, obviously we have invoices to pay, and then that's where we make an amendment to, you know, add additional not to exceed amount to the contract. So
But
there's a
yeah.
number of amendments.
So then that means the not to exceed amount is just a number until it's not a number, because you keep exceeding the not to exceed amount by amending the contract, which I understand might be because of costs or whatever, but I'm just not convinced that, again, the two big things is keeping the cost going up, also black uniforms now, and then the second thing is the 3-year extension, it's already a 5-year contract. And again, we generally do just for the new folks, we do a 3-1-1. And I know that's a little different with the IT because they also, same sort of thing, same rhetoric of like there's only two people, Motorola or Amazon. Same sort of thing, there's only Nye and whatever. But that isn't compelling enough because you're saying part of the justification here is we don't want the cost to go up, but the cost has gone up by $250K, $80K, and $200 more K. So like, I don't imagine the cost will not go up again because you just amend the contract you've gotten.
Right, but the cost right now is because we're transitioning, so we have to, people had their brown uniforms and we're transitioning to a different uniform, so obviously there's the cost of the initial investment. And then typically what happened is we would issue uniforms and then there's a 5-year replacement schedule. So our former budget or our budget was, sufficient to cover the replacements and cover new hires and such. Obviously now we're trying to transition a whole agency, so, we're looking at that as we go, what those costs are gonna be, how much this is, so it's a huge undertaking to transition all of that with the current budget. And like I said, I'm trying to stretch it as much as possible to fit as many people and transition as many people per year with our budget constraints that we have and, making any amendments that we need to make. But if we go out to bid and the cost of each item goes up, then that's what I'm concerned about. That's why we're here. So yes, and that's why we're here is because we're not following the typical process and we are here to get your, get your approval and ask for that and explain to you why we want to do that. So.
And I think just go through the process and let's see what happens. But that's right, I'm willing to hear another better answer. Shay.
Commissioner Powell?
So on an annual, what is the budget? Cause I'm looking at documents, but there's nothing like really addressing that. So on a yearly, what is our cost? Like what do we pay on a year?
Typically, our budget has been about $300,000 and we haven't used, in a regular year when we were in brown uniforms, and we had a standard year where we didn't hire a lot of people or we just had some uniform replacements, we didn't typically use all of the budget. But the last couple of years since the transition we have, I wanna say a couple of years ago, our actuals might have been double that because we took some, we actually carried forward, when we knew we were in the transition, we carried forward from one year to the next to start the implementation of it. But that's typically what we have is right around 300,000, which, go ahead.
I was saying previously, we would be able to use brown uniforms that we had that for people who were hired on but then left. So they were basically new uniforms, you could reuse those. Well, we don't have any black uniforms to supply, so.
Yes, that's a good point. So we actually have in the basement of the jail, we call it the uniform room. And so anybody, when they retire, resign, whatever, we keep any uniform that can be reissued that's in good shape, we get it dry cleaned and we keep it in the basement for reissue. So obviously we have a whole, sets of brown uniforms that we are using those right now too. We're reissuing those as much as we can to, bridge the gap with this transition until everybody gets to black. And then at some point in time, we will build an inventory of that and then reissue them as well. But right now it's just full transition.
Okay, so within the transitional costs, with that being said, on an average of 300 when we were just a brown, now we're transitioning, what is the total now? Or would it always still be budgeted at the 300?
Yeah, it's budgeted there, and then I'm doing whatever I can. Like I said, if there's a little something, another project comes in under budget, I'm trying to make an amendment to move some of that to uniforms, just to make sure. So on average, let's say somebody, because we have different people, obviously people that are in special assignments, undercover, whatever, they get a partial issue. They don't get the full set of uniforms because of their normal issue. So you have somebody that has a full issue and it has all of the gear, everything that's been required for this new, it's roughly $3,000. So that 300 only fits like 100 people if we're doing a full issue. So as you can imagine, 300,000 doesn't go very far, and we have, probably 1,200 to 1,300 people, including new hires that come in and we have to do it.
And we phased the transition.
Yes.
We've been phasing it,
Yes.
Yes. For the last, you said 2 years?
I think we've been two and a half years. I mean, we've done a number of
To the
fittings.
black?
yes.
Okay, I was excited about the black, so.
Right, so I mean, and everybody has their own opinion about that, right? So, but I'm looking at it from the fiduciary aspect because that's my role, right? So, my concern is that I don't get it all transitioned within this kind of 5 years and then we have to start replacing. Well, I don't have a replacement budget because I'm still in the transition budget, so that's the way I'm looking at it. So I'm trying to be financially responsible. If I could hold the price for 3 years and try to get that transition done in a 5-year period, and then hopefully the regular budget will be substantial to, start replacing when we need to.
Got it, thank you.
Well, initially, how did the conversation come up to transition from brown uniforms to black uniforms?
Well, partially, those pants, the brown pants, it's called a pink tan color and it's a poly wool blend, and I know way more than I need to. It's really tough to get. Obviously, you see TV, you see other agencies, there's not too many people. There's some sheriff's office in brown, there's not a lot. So we actually had trouble with, the manufacturer made it specifically for us. So Nye Uniform and the manufacturer, we had to meet with them both to say, hey, we want to continue this. So even going out to bid last time was a little bit of a challenge because it's not widely available. So that was part of it. And it's tough to get that material.
We've heard of other agencies starting to switch for that same reason. Some are even looking at green. I know Florida Sheriff's Office have a green or a dark green, so some agencies are looking at that now.
Thank you.
So yeah, navy and black are kind of the typical ones and they're much easier to get. And then the materials change too. So it's more of, I think, like wicking material. It's, they're more up-to-date fabrics than those poly wool pants that we used to have. Or that we still have, but we're transitioning.
It's much more slimming.
Look around the table here, how many of us have black on? All right, thank you. Any other questions regarding this item? All right, the last one, the amendment to the service agreement with Oxford.
Okay, so Oxford Township has requested to add a patrol sergeant and 2 patrol investigators to their township agreement. So this is amendment number 2 to their agreement. I'm asking you to approve the additions.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell?
And I always ask this is something that the township pays for, correct?
Yes, yep, so they have a letter, I think the letter is included in the back of the packet, and absolutely they're fully funding.
Thank you, just for record, thank you.
Commissioner Cavell?
Would you be able to share where we are with each of the substations in different locales all the 12 substations, how many people are assigned there per the request?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the breakdown of the positions, we have it.
So right, these 3 new in Oxford means there's 70 Oxford substation people.
Yep, and actually, if you look, that's on Schedule A so they have a total of 24 now.
Okay.
But so that's in each Schedule A agreement, but we do have one, so you want to break down with all of the contracted areas?
Yeah,
Yes.
please.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, we're gonna, Commissioner Powell?
One more question, that same request that he's asking for, can we also, from a better budgetary standpoint, I'm requesting that once you do that, I just wanna see what every municipality is paying.
Sure.
Their total budgets. Thank you.
Yeah, CC me on that too, please.
I will send it to the whole committee.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, we'll take these 3 items individually. The first item being the Marine Safety Program, so would you prompt the vote for that item?
Nelson,
Yes.
Cavell,
Yes.
you have 8 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, motion carries, thank you. The next item to prompt is the.
We need consistent. Yeah.
Oh, we already have a motion.
You want them for all 3? Okay. Okay, yes,
All right.
that's fine, sorry.
The next item is the extension for uniform services. Would you prompt that vote?
yeas, 1 nay.
All right, 7 yeas, 1 nay, that motion carries. The last item is the amendment for Oxford with the law enforcement agreement. Would you prompt that vote?
Eight yeas, 0 nays.
All right, that motion carries, thank you. So while you're here, I wanted to address what happened in the last caucus and the letter therein. And I know this information will be coming back to this committee in March. But I don't know if anybody had any questions or comments regarding this, Commissioner Powell?
Well, just to let you know, I do know that Chairman Woodward met with Sheriff Bouchard late last week. So I do know, just to share with my colleagues, we should be getting some updates as far as how that discussion went. But in the meantime, if y'all did have any other questions, we can pose questions, but I just want to let everybody know that.
Thank you. And I did want to acknowledge what happened in caucus and the letter thereafter. And I thought your letter was very self-sufficient. Commissioner Gershenson?
And I also wanted to address the fact that you didn't get the opportunity to speak. So we've had internal discussions from leadership that the meeting should end at 6. And I know our new chair was trying to stay to that and has been criticized and complimented, and it's just one of those controversial things. It certainly would have been a discussion, I'm sure, till 6:30, and we have guests. So it's kind of a touchy thing about figuring out which items are gonna take 20 minutes and which items are gonna take 5. But there was certainly no intention to slight. It was more of a leadership decision that we're gonna really try to stick to that 6 o'clock.
Understood.
Commissioner Powell?
Yes, and I just wanna, on record, support exactly what Gershenson said for clarity for you all. Because you all know I'm a supporter of the Sheriff Department, and that was the sole reason, is for me to keep our meeting on schedule, to respect our guest that comes to our meeting, and our Republican caucus too, just to keep all of us on schedule. So I do apologize if it came off any other way, but that was the reason why.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Our last item is public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to address this board on any item? Seeing none, public comment is closed, and I will adjourn this meeting at 11:05. Thank you, everybody.
Commissioner Nelson, I was able